Hey guys, welcome to another Virgo Girl recommendation. Today's recommendation is Shirley. This is a movie that I found on Netflix, and I must say it was very enlightening, and it also kind of brought to light some things that occurred a very, very long time ago that I wasn't aware of. So we're going to start off with the fact that Regina King did a great job in portraying Shirley Chisholm. There was just a lot that went into playing this role, and I feel like she executed it very well. There were a couple of things with the accent that I kind of wanted to research because I wasn't really familiar with Shirley Chisholm's accent. I don't think I don't remember hearing her speak before. So what I did was I kind of went in and looked for other documentaries that had her, the actual real Shirley Caesar talking after I watched the movie. I'll get into that a little later maybe, but right now I'm going to focus on the movie itself and what I thought of it basically, and why I'm telling you that I think it's a great watch, and why I'm recommending it in the first place. So this movie, it starts off, in a way that I must say is generally not something that I would really praise or anything, and I'm going to tell you why. When I'm watching a documentary of any type and they do just a certain portion of the person's life, that is not at all my favorite type of documentary, because for me, I need a backstory. I need a little bit on the background. Even if you want to make it small, that's fine. Even if you want to decide that it's going to make the movie maybe 20 minutes longer, I'm fine with that. I know, like, a lot of times people don't like super long movies and things like that, but I personally like a backstory. This movie, this is where it lacked for me. I would have loved to know a little bit more about her past and, like how she grew up. I mean, they gave us just a little bit of sprinkles, but for me, that portion of it was not enough. So the beginning, I feel, should have given us a little bit more backstory, building up to where she was actually the first Black Congresswoman, and then she was the first. And then where she eventually got to be running for president. Now, how do I even explain without doing spoilers this lady? A lot of you probably already knew about, or no, I shouldn't say a lot of you knew about her, because I wasn't really 100% familiar with everything about, like Shirley Chisholm, so I shouldn't say that sentence. What I will say is I learned something from watching this. So I feel that it is a great watch because I feel it's educational. Anything that's educational, anything you can learn from, build on, all that is great. What I took from this is that this lady was very strong, despite not having a lot of backing from the people I think she wanted it the most from. I gathered from this movie that her mother and her sister, like her family, her immediate family, wasn't there for her in the way that she needed them to be, and for her. I feel like for her, they weren't there for her. However, it didn't really dig into why they weren't there for her. It gave you a little kind of an idea of maybe this is why, but that part, I think they could have elaborated on that just a little bit more, just to give us a little bit more backstory on that part. I get it, they felt she was a certain way, et cetera, but I would have liked to know a little bit more about that portion of it. And also, they spoke about, her father. It seemed that she was close with her father, but it was just the details were lacking. That's my only thing I would say. Now, I know I'm recommending this, so it's kind of odd that I'm talking about these few little nuances that were kind of things that I felt should have been done differently, but it is what it is. I'm recommending it because I feel that it is educational. I feel that it does bring something to the table that's worth watching, and I'll just take it from there. So this lady, she seemed to be a very strong person. She came from humble beginnings, for the most part. And she also ended up being a person that kind of broke barriers. She was a person who wasn't afraid of, to stand up for what she believed in. And she also wasn't afraid of a challenge. She didn't shy away from things that a lot of people would be petrified to face or to even deal with. It seems like she was the kind of person that ran toward those things and without compromising herself, if you will. I think that she is someone that in the movie it showed that people were looking up to her. And then it also, I like that it showed, well, I'm not going to say too much on that, but it did show, that there were women who actually looked up to her. And in that time, I think it was a very important time you know, for women to have someone to look up to. So it seemed that she crossed all races. It seemed that she was the type of person that, embraced, I feel like more of like the underdog. She seemed like the type of person that was fighting for the underdog, the poor, the people who didn't have a voice for themselves. She was that person. I gathered from this film also that she was very passionate about people, and she seemed like the type of person that was caring, but still at the same time stern. How you meet someone. I actually have a friend like this. There are people who are not exactly, they don't actually treat you like with kitty gloves. They're not gonna like be super like maybe easy on you, or how do I say this? Basically, they can be loving in their own way, but they come off a little rough around the edges, a little harsh. But they are indeed truly loving people. They are indeed truly good friends, but they just happen to have the personality type that's not really easy on you, or they don't really, the way they speak may be a little bit more direct and a little bit more firm, and it may almost to the point where they seem kind of rude, if you will, but it's just how they are. They're not really rude like how like a traditionally rude person would be, but they're like, that's just the way they are, just, I think a lot of type A personalities are like that. But when you meet them, they're 10 toes down. A lot They're actually a lot better than a lot of people who are soft and fuzzy and like, oh, da, da, da. Those people who come with all that fluff. A lot of times, people like that, who are a little bit more, rough around the edges or rude, if you will, seemingly, a lot of times those are some of the best people because they're just real. They're just being themselves, and they're being real and authentic to themselves, but they do have a good heart. But they're the way they say things is just different from how another person may say it. I feel like with this lady, she was kind of like that from what I got from the movie. Again, in this movie, they left a lot of things up to your imagination to kind of like work through your mind and think, well, maybe this is how it is, but when it could indeed be a little different. So for me, I'm going to watch some more documentaries on her that are actually, with her, the real woman, because now I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I want to know more. So I did see that they have one that was on, I believe it's on Hulu. Hulu has a documentary on Shirley Chisholm, and I'm going to check that out. I kind of started watching it already right after I watched this documentary, because I'm the kind of person that once I see something about someone and I'm interested, I start researching and checking on other, documentaries or other information I can find out about the person. So I definitely did that with this movie. But I will say this. So a lot of the characters in the movie, I was thinking like, well, how did they come about to be in her life? Example, Terrence Howard's character in the movie, it was obvious something was there with them. Like the initial meeting of those two is like, okay, they're like really close friends, something they maybe they dated in high school, something, but they never really said specifically, like it's just where these people came from. It's like people were just appearing. I talked about this in another movie, which was the movie with Leonardo. It was a movie I talked about with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they, in this movie, they actually did take the time to give you some backstory on each of these characters. And I'm thankful for that, because for me, it makes everything so much better if it just has just a little backstory. If you take a few moments and just do a little backstory, even though like in your mind you can kind of like guess, oh well, maybe this is such and such. I would rather know. So with the character, with Terrence Howard's character in the movie, I think he did a good job. Side note, I want to say about this guy, Terrence Howard. He did a really good job in this movie. I always find him to be funny no matter what role he plays. And even though he wasn't playing like a role that was supposed to be funny or anything, he's just funny to me. I don't know. He's just something about him, his timing. He just seems really funny to me. But he played a gentleman in the movie who was pretty important to her life. And although, yeah, they showed him, I think that something should have been done more to, kind of highlight him more and kind of like give us a little bit more information on him. Then you had the dynamic between her and her husband. Man, it seems like what I got out of it was that she was kind of emasculating him, and it just came off as if he loved her more than she loved him, kind of thing. I would have loved to know a little bit more about that situation too. Because in my mind, I think there's a little bit more to that story. I feel like maybe during that time period of that we were focusing on, that's how things were. But I would love to know, like, how were things before, a little bit, just a little bit of backstory on their marriage too, and how how that kind of played out before this period. Because if you think about it, she was running for president. That is a very, very stressful like time. I mean, heightened, senses are heightened, emotions are heightened. I meant, and I mean, come on, she was running for president. I mean, and she was a woman and a black woman in 1972. That alone would cause stress on marriage. So a lot of stress on a marriage. So yeah, I just the whole way they played out the marriage, it was as if I would have taken it as their marriage was on the rocks. Period. Even before this, because it just didn't seem like there was a really strong foundation there to get them through this whole election process. Also, I did they have kids? I didn't hear them say anything about kids. I don't know if this woman ever had kids. That's something else I'd like to look up. But, just watching the movie, if she did have kids, man, why didn't they mention that part? Or did I miss it? Because I didn't see anything about her having kids or him having kids. So the little things like that, I was kind of surprised they didn't put that in. But for me, the movie really was inspirational to see someone who did not care so much about what other people thought, but cared more about the greater good, if you will. She cared more about getting her point across and helping people. That's what she seemed like to me. And I feel like that's what the movie was trying to portray. Also, she was the first Black congresswoman, which she's to be commended for that as well. And it showed on there that there's this one portion where this one guy was like really surprised that she was making like the same amount of money as him, which was quite interesting to me, because I guess in the government, maybe that's how it works. But I thought that was quite interesting that in 1972, this Black woman was making the exact same salary as a white male. So it must be like maybe a standard practice for this position that they have to all make the same amount, which that seems maybe minor for some people, but I thought that was quite interesting. And I thought that was pretty cool, actually, that they didn't like pay certain salaries to certain people, if you will. So they just kept it the same across the board. Because we all know that back then, I mean, they were doing all kinds of wild stuff, and, you know, especially with um, minorities. So equal pay wasn't exactly always there back then. And as it is today, even today, equal pay is not there. So I was kind of like surprised to hear that part. Pleasantly surprised, that is. And then also, I want to touch on how the one part I did like, because I feel like they had her strong, which she had to be strong to do the, you know, to do the things that she did. So she would have to have been a strong woman. But I love the part where they showed her and she like cried. There was one portion of it where she cried and she was vulnerable. And I think that's so important to show, because a lot of times when women are strong and people feel like they're strong and they got it all together and they can handle it and they're independent or what have you, and they seem like nothing is ever too much for them, you just throw stuff at them and they always just overcome whatever. A lot of times those women, their feelings aren't considered. You know, even though you're strong, it doesn't mean that you're not hurt, or you don't, you know, you're not vulnerable, or you don't need some help, or you don't need a break from all of the chaos, you know. So I love that they showed her just break down and cry, because it showed her human side, where it felt like everyone that was involved in her life just felt like she was just this rock, and nothing could, you know, penetrate her. She was just a rock, and no matter what, she was going to be fine. And when people feel that way about you, a lot of times they don't take the time to check on you. They don't give you what you need emotionally to help you to get through. So I did like that part. And aside from that, there were other parts of the movie I enjoyed. There was a part of the movie where they showed Diane Carroll, which is an actress, an older, from, you know, back in the day. And she, the lady that played Diane Carroll, I just want to say a special nod to her, because I thought she did a great job. I like this actress. I've seen her on other things and she always does a good job. She's kind of like one of those actresses that it's not exactly, you know, like big time or anything, but she's really great at what she does. And I think she has the potential to be a lot bigger than what she is, provided that she's given the opportunity to play in, you know, like bigger roles. And then I don't know what her name is right now off the top of my head, but you'll know who she is when you watch the movie. Anyway, I'm going to sum this up, guys. I just want to say, yeah, this is a good watch. It's on Netflix and it's called Shirley. Before I go, guys, I just want to say, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.